Family vanished in 1993. 25 around 5 years later. A hunter found their camp still warm in October 2018. Veteran hunter Marcus Webb stumbled upon something that shouldn't exist. A family campsite frozen in time for 25 years, with embers still warm in the fire pit and a 1993 calendar hanging inside the tent. This is the exact location where the Morrison family disappeared without a trace, and somehow, impossibly, time had stood still. Marcus Webb had been hunting in Montana's Whispering Valley for over 30 years. He knew every trail, every clearing, every hidden grove where elk gathered at dawn. But on that cold October morning, as frost crunched beneath his boots and his breath formed clouds in the mountain air, he found something that made his blood run cold. The campsite appeared suddenly, as if it had materialized from nowhere. Marcus stopped dead in his tracks, his rifle hanging loosely in his hands. There, in a small clearing he had walked through countless times, stood a weathered tent, a picnic table with food still laid out, and a fire pit with gray ash that seemed far too fresh for a site abandoned decades ago. His hands trembled as he pulled out his phone and began taking photographs. The Coleman lantern sitting on the picnic table was a model from the early 1990s. He recognized it because he'd owned the same one. But the fuel inside looked clean, almost new. Children's toys were scattered near the tent entrance. A red rubber ball, a set of jacks, a stuffed bear with button eyes. None of them showed the kind of weather damage you'd expect from 25 years of mountain winters. Marcus approached the tent slowly, his heart pounding against his ribcage. The smell hit him first, not the musty odor of decay, but something stranger. Fresh canvas. Pine needles? The faint scent of coffee. He unzipped the entrance with shaking hands. Inside, sleeping bags were laid out neatly. A journal sat open on a small camping chair, its pages pristine white, the ink looking as if it had been written yesterday. Marcus leaned closer, reading the date at the top of the page. June 15th, 1993. Just 3 days before the Morrison family vanished. He had heard the stories, of course. Everyone in the valley knew about the Morrisons. Tom and Linda Morrison, along with their 2 children, Emma and Jack, had come to Whispering Valley for a weekend camping trip in June 1993. They had checked in with the ranger station, set up their camp. And then, nothing. Search teams had combed the entire area for months. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers, nothing was ever found. No bodies, no equipment, no trace that the family had ever existed. But now, 25 years later, here was their camp. Waiting. Preserved. Impossible. Marcus backed away from the tent, his mind racing. This couldn't be real. The valley had been searched thoroughly. He'd been part of one of those search teams himself. How could this camp be here now, looking as if the family had just stepped away for a morning hike? He pulled out his phone again, this time to make a call. His fingers hovered over the screen. Who do you call when you find something that defies every law of nature? The police would think he was crazy. The Rangers would accuse him of staging a hoax. Then he remembered her, the journalist who specialized in cold cases, Sarah Chen. She had covered disappearances across the western states, never giving up on stories that others had long forgotten. Marcus pressed dial, his eyes never leaving the impossible camp before him. Sarah Chen stared at the photographs on her laptop screen, her coffee growing cold in her hands. The images Marcus Webb had sent were either the most elaborate hoax she'd ever seen, or something that shouldn't be possible. A family campsite, perfectly preserved for 25 years in the exact location where the Morrison family had vanished. She zoomed in on the details. The tent fabric showed no UV damage. The food on the picnic table looked fresh. Most disturbing was the journal, its pages crisp and white, the handwriting clear and unmistakable. Her phone buzzed. Marcus Webb's name appeared. "Have you looked at the photos?" His voice was shaky, urgent. "I have," Sarah replied cautiously. "Mr. Webb, this looks staged. Whispering Valley was searched extensively in 1993. I know how it sounds, Marcus said, but I've hunted that valley for 30 years. Ms. Chen, I'm telling you, that camp was never there before. It appeared. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Something in his voice, genuine fear, gave her pause. Send me the exact coordinates, she finally said. I'll come take a look myself. 3 days later, Sarah found herself driving through winding mountain roads toward Whispering Valley. The landscape was breathtaking, but there was something else about this place, an uneasiness that settled in her chest like a stone. Marcus was waiting at the ranger station, a weathered building from the 1970s. He was tall, in his 60s, with deeply lined features, but his eyes held something haunted, as if he'd seen something that had shaken his understanding of reality. Ready? He asked, shouldering a backpack. They hiked 3 miles in tense silence. Sarah noticed the forest's unnatural quiet. No bird songs, no rustling animals, just their boots on the trail and wind through the pines. Marcus stopped suddenly. It's just ahead. Through those aspens. Sarah's heart raced as they pushed through the trees. Then she saw it. The campsite sat in a small clearing, exactly as the photographs showed. But in person, something was different. The air felt thick, resistant, and there was a sound. A high-pitched hum she felt more than heard. She approached the tent, pulling out her camera. The Coleman lantern looked pristine. She unscrewed the fuel cap and inhaled. Fresh. The fuel was impossibly fresh. This can't be real, she whispered. Look at the journal, Marcus called from the clearing's edge. Sarah entered the tent, hands trembling as she picked up the journal. The leather was smooth, uncracked. She opened it carefully. Sarah's blood ran cold. The remaining pages were blank. Whatever Linda Morrison planned to write next never happened. She emerged from the tent, journal in hand. They knew, she said quietly. The Morrisons knew something would happen. This wasn't an accident. They came here deliberately. Marcus's face paled. What are you saying? This wasn't a disappearance, Mr. Webb. Sarah looked around the impossible campsite. This was an experiment, and something went terribly wrong. Sarah spent 2 weeks buried in research, trying to understand what she'd found. The journal mentioned astronomical alignments and time anomalies, but nothing explained a campsite frozen for 25 years. Late one November evening, she received an email that changed everything. Dr. Raymond Park, a physics professor from Oregon, wrote, I know what happened to the Morrisons. Sarah had received dozens of messages from conspiracy theorists, but something about this felt different. She opened it. 2 days later, Sarah sat in Dr. Park's cluttered office. He was in his late 60s, with silver hair and exhausted eyes. Maps and geological surveys covered the walls behind him. Rare earth minerals, he said, pointing to a map. Whispering Valley sits on massive deposits creating unusual electromagnetic fields. Under specific conditions, these fields affect time flow in localized areas. Sarah leaned forward. Time moves differently there? Not differently, separately. He pulled out research papers. 2 streams flowing side by side, occasionally touching. Something from one stream slips into another. That's what happened to the Morrisons. He spread photographs across his desk, double exposures like Tom Morrison's images. My wife took these in 1989. She hiked Whispering Valley and returned 3 hours late, but her watch showed 15 minutes. She became obsessed with understanding it. His voice broke. She died trying to prove it was real. Heart attack, doctors said. But I know, being called crazy, no one believing her, it killed her. When the Morrisons disappeared 4 years later, I knew she'd been right. Why didn't you come forward? Sarah asked. I tried. Authorities dismissed me. He pulled out a document with an official stamp. But someone else listened. Someone with resources. Sarah's blood ran cold, reading the letterhead. Cascade Holdings, LLC. They've been buying land around every temporal anomaly site in the western U.S., Dr. Park said, Quietly, systematically, they know what's happening and want to control it. Who runs Cascade Holdings? Dr. Park's expression darkened. The company was founded in 1994, 1 year after the disappearance. The founder is J.M. Morrison. Sarah's heart stopped. Jack Morrison, the son? The boy who supposedly vanished is now a billionaire CEO buying temporal anomaly sites. Dr. Park leaned back. Either Jack escaped whatever took his family, or something else is happening, Sarah finished. A knock interrupted them. A woman in her 50s with sharp eyes entered. Dr. Park, is this the journalist? Sarah Chen, meet Grace Martinez. Original 1993 search team. Grace's hands trembled as she sat. During the search, I experienced something. I searched a grove for what felt like 15 minutes. When I emerged, 3 hours had passed. The entire team was looking for me. Sarah felt pieces clicking into place. That's not all, Grace continued, voice barely audible. 2 days ago, I received this. She slid a photograph across the desk. Sarah's breath caught. The image showed the Morrison family, Tom, Linda, Emma, and Jack, standing before their tent. The date stamp read, November 2018. Sarah spent 2 weeks buried in research. The journal mentioned astronomical alignments and time anomalies, but nothing explained a campsite frozen for 25 years. Late one November evening, an email arrived from Dr. Raymond Park, a physics professor. Subject line, I know what happened to the Morrisons. Sarah had received dozens of messages from conspiracy theorists, but this felt different. 2 days later, Sarah sat in Dr. Park's cluttered office. Maps and geological surveys covered the walls. Rare earth minerals, he said, pointing to a map. Whispering Valley sits on deposits creating electromagnetic fields. Under specific conditions, these affect time flow. Time moves differently there? 2 streams flowing side by side, occasionally touching. Something slips from one to another. That's what happened. He spread photographs across his desk, double exposures like Tom Morrison's. My wife took these in 1989. She hiked there and returned 3 hours late, but her watch showed 15 minutes. She became obsessed. His voice broke. She died trying to prove it. Heart attack, doctors said. Being called crazy killed her. When the Morrisons disappeared 4 years later, I knew she was right. Why didn't you come forward? I tried. Authorities dismissed me. He pulled out a document. But someone else listened. The letterhead read, Cascade Holdings, LLC. They've been buying land around every temporal anomaly site, Dr. Park said. They know what's happening. Who runs it? Founded in 1994, 1 year after the disappearance. The founder is J.M. Morrison. Sarah's heart stopped. Jack Morrison? The boy who vanished is now a billionaire CEO buying these sites. A knock interrupted. A woman in her 50s entered. Dr. Park, is this the journalist? Sarah Chen, meet Grace Martinez, original search team member. Grace sat, hands trembling. During the search, I experienced something. I searched a grove for 15 minutes. When I emerged, 3 hours had passed. The team was looking for me. 2 days ago, I received this. Grace slid a photograph across the desk. The Morrison family, Tom, Linda, Emma, and Jack, stood before their tent. The date stamp, November 2018. Sarah stared at the photograph of the Morrison family dated November 2018. Her mind raced with impossible questions. How could they look exactly the same as they did in 1993? Not a day older, wearing the same clothes, standing in front of the same tent. Where did you get this? Sarah asked Grace. It arrived in an unmarked envelope, Grace said, her voice shaking. No return address, no note. Just the photograph. Dr. Park adjusted his glasses, examining the image closely. The date stamp could be manipulated, but the photo quality is consistent with modern digital cameras. This wasn't taken in 1993. Sarah pulled out her laptop and began searching for information about the original investigation. Something had been bothering her since she found the campsite. The searches in 1993 were thorough, yet they somehow missed an entire campsite. I need to see the original case files, Sarah said. Everything from the 1993 investigation. Grace nodded slowly. I can get you access, but you need to understand something. There were inconsistencies back then that bothered me. Evidence that didn't make sense. Reports that contradicted each other. 2 days later, Sarah sat in a dusty archive room at the county sheriff's office. Boxes of files from the Morrison case surrounded her. She started with the search grid maps, comparing them to her GPS coordinates from the campsite location. Her blood ran cold. The campsite location had been searched multiple times. Teams had walked directly through that clearing. How had they missed it? She pulled out witness statements next. Local hikers, rangers, other campers in the area during June 1993. Most reported nothing unusual. But 3 statements caught her attention. All filed in the wrong box, almost as if someone wanted them buried. A hiker named Robert Chen reported seeing strange lights near Whispering Valley on June 17, 1993, the night before the Morrisons were reported missing. His compass went crazy, spinning without stopping. A ranger, David Walsh, reported finding the Morrison campsite on June 19th. But when he returned with the search team an hour later, it was like it had never been there. Most disturbing was a statement from another camper, Melissa Torres. She claimed she saw the Morrison family on June 20th, 2 days after they supposedly vanished. They were walking in circles, like they couldn't find their way out of the clearing. Sarah photographed every page. Someone had deliberately misfiled these statements. Someone didn't want these witnesses taken seriously. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop digging, Ms. Chen. The voice was distorted, mechanical. The Morrison case is closed. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Who is this? Sarah demanded. Someone who knows what happens to journalists who ask too many questions. Walk away while you still can. The line went dead. Sarah's hands trembled, but not from fear, from anger. Someone was trying to scare her off, which meant she was getting close to something they wanted hidden. She called Dr. Park. I found something. Evidence was deliberately buried. Witnesses who saw things that night were ignored. Sarah, you need to be careful, Dr. Park warned. If Jack Morrison is involved, he has resources, money, power. I'm going to find him, Sarah said. I'm going to ask him directly what happened to his family. Grace's voice came through on a 3-way call Dr. Park had initiated. I'm coming with you. I've waited 25 years for answers. I'm not stopping now. Sarah looked at the photograph of the Morrison family again. They stood frozen in time, trapped in a moment that shouldn't exist. Sarah's investigation took an unexpected turn when she began searching for Emma Morrison, who would now be 35 years old. What she discovered challenged everything she thought she understood about the case. There were 3 different women using variations of Emma Morrison's identity. The first Emma lived in Seattle, a graphic designer with Emma's exact birth date and childhood memories of Whispering Valley. But her adoption papers showed she came from a family in Oregon, not Montana. Sarah knocked on her apartment door on a cold December morning. The woman who answered had Emma Morrison's eyes from the 1993 photographs. The same unusual green-gray color, the same shape. Emma Morrison? Sarah asked carefully. The woman's face went pale. I haven't used that name in years. How did you find me? Can we talk? It's about your family. Inside the apartment, Emma, now calling herself Emma Chen, sat with shaking hands wrapped around a coffee mug. I don't remember much about before. I was found on a doorstep in November 1993, confused, couldn't explain how I got there. I kept talking about my family still being in the mountains. What do you remember about Whispering Valley? Sarah asked. Dreams, mostly. A camping trip that never ends. Walking in circles. Calling for my parents, but they can't hear me. Tears filled her eyes. My adoptive mother said I was traumatized, that my mind was protecting me from something terrible. Sarah showed her the 2018 photograph. Emma's mug slipped from her hands, shattering on the floor. "That's impossible," she whispered. "That's my family. That's me. But I'm here. I'm 35 years old. How can I be in that photograph looking exactly like I did at 10? Sarah traveled to Chicago next, finding the second Emma, a geologist working for an environmental research company. This Emma had fragmentary memories and vivid dreams of a camping trip. Her birth certificate said Montana, but she was raised by an aunt who could never explain what happened to the girl's parents. "They had to go away," was all her aunt ever said. This Emma showed Sarah her research. She'd been studying electromagnetic anomalies in geological formations for years, drawn to the work without understanding why. "I dream about a valley," she said quietly. "In the dream, I'm walking through time like it's a physical place. I can see different versions of the same moment, all happening at once." Does that sound crazy? The third Emma was the most elusive. She worked as a quantum physics researcher at a private facility in Nevada and refused all contact. But Sarah discovered something shocking. This Emma had been anonymously funding Dr. Park's temporal research for years. Sarah managed to obtain a photograph of the Nevada Emma through a colleague. When she compared it to the Seattle and Chicago versions, her blood ran cold. They were identical. Not similar, identical. The same face, same eyes, same small scar above the left eyebrow. Dr. Park examined all the evidence Sarah had gathered. "This shouldn't be possible," he said. "But if the temporal anomaly didn't just trap them, if it split them across multiple timelines, each Emma could be living a different version of the same life simultaneously." Grace Martinez added another piece to the puzzle. "I found something else in the old files. There were reports of 3 different girls matching Emma's description found in different states in November 1993. All confused, all with stories about being lost in the mountains. The reports were filed separately, never connected." Sarah felt the pieces clicking together, forming a picture of something far stranger than a simple disappearance. "They're not missing," Sarah said slowly. "They're scattered." The Morrison family was split across different timelines, each living separate versions of reality. Sarah's obsession with finding Jack Morrison intensified. If 3 versions of Emma existed across different timelines, what happened to Jack? And why was he the only family member who seemed to have escaped the anomaly completely? Cascade Holdings' headquarters sat in downtown Seattle, a gleaming tower of glass and steel. Sarah had tried calling, emailing, even showing up unannounced. Every attempt was blocked by layers of security and corporate bureaucracy. But Grace had an idea. "There's a town hall meeting next week about Cascade's latest land acquisition near Whispering Valley," she said. "Jack Morrison will be there. He has to face the community." The meeting was held in the same small mountain town where Sarah had first met Marcus Webb. The community center was packed. Loggers, rangers, local families, all concerned about Cascade Holdings buying up surrounding land. Sarah sat in the back row, watching as Jack Morrison took the stage. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with his father's strong jawline and his mother's intelligent eyes. But there was something haunted about him, a darkness that seemed to follow him like a shadow. "Cascade Holdings is committed to preserving the natural beauty of Whispering Valley," Jack said, his voice smooth and practiced. "Our research facilities will have minimal environmental impact." "Research into what?" someone shouted from the crowd. Jack's jaw tightened. "Geological surveys, electromagnetic field studies. Nothing that will disturb the ecosystem." After the meeting, Sarah followed Jack to the parking lot. "Mr. Morrison, I need to talk to you about your family." He froze, hand on his car door. When he turned, his face was a mask of controlled emotion. "I don't know who you are, but my name is Sarah Chen. I'm investigating what happened in 1993. I found the campsite, Jack. The one with the warm embers and the journal. I know about the temporal anomalies. I know about the 3 versions of your sister." Jack's composure cracked. "Get in the car, now. We can't talk here." He drove to a remote cabin an hour outside town. Inside, the walls were covered with maps, photographs, equations, 25 years of obsessive research. "I didn't vanish that night," Jack said, pouring himself whiskey with shaking hands. "I wandered away from camp before it happened. When I came back, they were gone, but I could hear them. My mother calling my name, my father shouting, Emma crying. They were right there, but I couldn't reach them." "The temporal pocket," Sarah said. "I've spent my entire adult life studying it, mapping every location where these anomalies occur, building equipment to stabilize the fields." His eyes were desperate, haunted. "I'm trying to bring them back. Jack, there are 3 versions of Emma living separate lives. What if bringing your family back means destroying those timelines? Destroying those versions of your sister?" "I know!" Jack slammed his fist on the table. "Don't you think I know? But what's the alternative? Leave my parents trapped in a temporal loop, experiencing the same terrified moments over and over?" Sarah pulled out the 2018 photograph. "Who sent this to Grace Martinez?" Jack's face went white. "Where did you get that?" "Answer the question." "I don't know who sent it, but I know what it means." He pulled out his own collection of photographs, dozens of images showing the Morrison family in different years, different locations, always looking exactly the same. They're not trapped in one moment. They're existing in all moments simultaneously. Every photograph is real. Every sighting is real. They're scattered across time itself. "There's something else," Jack continued, voice breaking. "The government knows. They've known since before 1993. There was a research program in the 1980s studying these temporal pockets. Marcus Webb, the hunter who found the campsite, he worked for them." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Marcus led me to the camp. He wanted me to find it." "They're using you," Jack said. "Using your investigation to locate all the temporal pockets, all the scattered pieces of my family. And when they have enough data, they'll restart the program. My family won't just be lost. They'll be experiments." A sound outside made them both freeze. Through the window, Sarah saw black SUVs surrounding the cabin. "They followed you?" Jack whispered. The cabin door burst open. Men in dark suits flooded in, weapons drawn. But they weren't looking at Sarah. They were looking at Jack Morrison. "Mr. Morrison, you need to come with us," the lead agent said. Jack raised his hand slowly. "Under what authority?" "National security. Your research into temporal anomalies poses a threat to—" "Stop!" A woman's voice cut through the tension. Sarah turned to see Marcus Webb entering the cabin, but he wasn't alone. Behind him stood Grace Martinez, and her expression was not one of surprise. It was resignation. "Grace!" Sarah's voice cracked. "What's going on?" Grace looked at her with sad eyes. "I'm sorry, Sarah, but this is bigger than your investigation." Marcus stepped forward, pulling out a worn badge. "Special Projects Division. I've been monitoring Whispering Valley for 37 years. Grace has been my partner for 25 of them." Sarah felt the world tilting. "You've been lying to me this entire time?" "Not lying," Grace said. Protecting. "Sarah, there are things about the Morrison case you don't understand. Things that could be dangerous if they became public." Jack's laugh was bitter. "Dangerous? You mean profitable? The government has been studying temporal pockets since the 1970s. They knew what would happen to my family, and they let it happen anyway." Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's not true. We tried to warn your father. Tom Morrison was brilliant, but reckless. He thought he could observe the phenomenon safely. He was wrong." "Then why hide the evidence?" Sarah demanded. "Why bury witness statements? Why let everyone think the Morrisons simply disappeared?" "Because revealing the truth would have caused panic," Marcus said. "Imagine the chaos if people knew there were places where time itself fractures, where people could be split across multiple realities. Every missing person case would be questioned. Every unexplained disappearance would be blamed on temporal anomalies." Grace added, "We've been protecting not just the truth, but the people who stumble into these places. The three versions of Emma Morrison are living normal lives because we made sure they were adopted by good families, given new identities, kept safe from those who would exploit what they represent. Sarah's mind raced. The photograph. The one dated 2018. Who sent it? Marcus and Grace exchanged glances. We did, Grace admitted. We needed you to understand the scope of what's happening. The temporal field is becoming unstable. The same astronomical alignment that occurred in 1993 is happening again. In 3 months. Jack's face went pale. That's why the campsite reappeared. The field is fluctuating, bringing pieces of that night back into our timeline. Exactly, Marcus said. And when the full alignment occurs, the barrier between timelines will thin enough for someone to cross through. We can bring the Morrison family back. Or trap more people forever, Sarah said. That's why we need your help, Grace said. Both of you. Sarah, your investigation has uncovered connections we missed. Jack, your research and equipment could stabilize the field. Together, we might be able to save your family without destroying the timelines where Emma exists. Jack shook his head. I don't trust you. You've been watching, studying, treating my family's tragedy like a science experiment. You're right, Marcus said quietly. We have. But my wife, she was one of the first. She vanished in 1979 in a temporal pocket in Wyoming. I've spent 40 years trying to understand what happened to her, trying to bring her back. This isn't just about your family, Jack. There are dozens of people lost in these fractures. The alignment in 3 months is our chance to save them all. Sarah looked between them. Marcus with his decades of guilt, Grace with her burden of secrets, Jack with his desperate hope. Everyone had been lying. Everyone had been hiding something. But maybe, just maybe, they were all after the same thing. What do we need to do? Sarah asked. Marcus pulled out a map of Whispering Valley. We need to go back to where it all began. The journey back to Whispering Valley began in early January. Snow covered the mountain trails, making the 3-mile hike treacherous. Sarah, Jack, Marcus, Grace, and Dr. Park moved carefully through the frozen landscape, each carrying equipment that Jack insisted was essential for stabilizing the temporal field. The local mountain community watched them leave with knowing eyes. Sarah noticed an elderly woman standing at the edge of town, her weathered face etched with concern. As they passed, the woman grabbed Sarah's arm. You're going to the sacred place, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't understand what you're disturbing. We're trying to help people, Sarah replied. The woman's grip tightened. The valley takes what it needs. Those who enter the time pockets, they don't disappear. They transform. They become part of something greater. Your interference will upset the balance. Marcus gently pulled Sarah away. Local superstition. They've believed these places are sacred for generations. But Sarah couldn't shake the woman's words. What if the Morrison family hadn't been victims? What if they'd been chosen? They reached the campsite by late afternoon. The tent was still there, but something had changed. The fabric seemed to shimmer, as if it existed in 2 places at once. The air hummed with that same high-pitched frequency Sarah had felt before, but stronger now. Dr. Park immediately began taking readings. The electromagnetic field is intensifying. The alignment is still 3 months away, but the fluctuations are increasing exponentially. Jack set up his equipment, strange devices with spinning gyroscopes, electromagnetic sensors, and what looked like modified radio equipment. If my calculations are correct, we should be able to communicate with anyone trapped in the temporal pocket. They're not in the past. They're in a parallel stream of time flowing alongside ours. And if your calculations are wrong? Grace asked. Jack's expression darkened. Then we might get trapped ourselves. As night fell, they built a fire outside the anomaly zone. The temperature dropped rapidly, and the forest around them grew unnaturally silent. No wind, no animal sounds, just the crackling of burning wood. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said suddenly, staring into the flames, "about why the government really wants to control these temporal pockets." Everyone turned to him. "In 1979, when my wife vanished, we weren't just hiking. We were part of a military research team studying what we called time wells. The government believed these pockets could be weaponized. Imagine being able to trap enemy forces in loops of time, or access parallel realities where wars had different outcomes." "That's insane," Sarah said. "That's classified," Marcus corrected. The program was shut down after 3 research teams vanished. But now, with technology advanced enough to stabilize the fields, there are people in the government who want to restart the program. Jack stood abruptly. "That's why you've been helping me. You want my research." "I want to save my wife," Marcus said, voice breaking. "Han, and your family, and everyone else lost in these fractures. But yes, there are others who see this as an opportunity for power." A sound interrupted them. A voice, faint and distant, carried on the wind. "Jack? Jack, can you hear me?" Jack's face went white. "That's my mother. That's Linda Morrison." Everyone rushed to Jack's equipment. The devices were active, lights blinking, gyroscopes spinning wildly. Through the static of the radio-like device came a woman's voice, clearer now. "Jack, if you can hear this, you need to listen carefully. We're not trapped. We chose to stay. Don't try to bring us back. Don't—" The signal cut out. Jack frantically adjusted the equipment, but the connection was lost. He turned to the group, tears streaming down his face. "She said they chose to stay. Why would they choose this?" Dr. Park studied his readings, his expression troubled. "Because maybe they discovered something in that temporal pocket. Something worth staying for." Sarah looked at the shimmering tent, understanding dawning. "Unseen sats just satsafwanilafuri. They're not suffering. They found something, a way to exist outside normal time, to observe all possible realities. They're not victims. They're explorers." Grace's radio crackled to life. A panicked voice came through. "Grace, this is command. We have a situation. The Nevada Emma, she's gone. She left a note saying she's going to Whispering Valley. She'll be there by morning." Sarah's blood ran cold. "She's coming here? Why?" "Because," Jack said slowly, realization hitting him. "She's going to enter the temporal pocket. She's going to join them." Emma arrived at dawn, emerging from the forest like a ghost. But she wasn't alone. The Seattle and Chicago versions followed minutes apart, as if drawn by the same invisible force. Sarah watched in disbelief as 3 identical women stood at the clearing's edge, staring at each other with recognition and wonder. "Antuitu, how is this possible?" Grace whispered. "The temporal field is pulling them together," Dr. Park said, checking his instruments. "As the alignment approaches, the barriers between timelines are thinning. They're being drawn to the source." The 3 Emmas spoke simultaneously, their voices harmonizing eerily. "We remember now, all of it." Jack rushed toward them, but Marcus held him back. "Don't. We don't know what will happen if they touch." Seattle Emma stepped forward first. "We've been living fragments of the same life, different choices, different paths, but the same soul divided across realities." Chicago Emma continued. "In dreams, we've been communicating across timelines, sharing memories, understanding what happened." Nevada Emma finished. "And now we know the truth. Our parents discovered something extraordinary, a way to exist in all moments simultaneously. They're not trapped. They're transcendent." "I don't understand," Jack said, voice breaking. "Why would they choose to leave us?" "They didn't leave," Seattle Emma said gently. "They're everywhere, in every timeline, every possibility. They found a way to protect all versions of us, watching over every reality where their children exist." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. The photograph, the sightings across different years. They've been visiting, checking on you across multiple timelines. Exactly, Nevada Emma said. And now we're being called to join them. No, Jack shouted. I won't lose you again. Any of you. The three Emmas smiled sadly. You won't lose us, Jack. You'll understand us. Finally. Before anyone could stop them, the three Emmas joined hands and walked toward the shimmering tent. As they approached the temporal pocket, their forms began to blur, overlapping like the double-exposure photographs Tom Morrison had taken. Jack's equipment screamed with activity. The gyroscopes spun wildly, lights flashing in impossible patterns. Through the speakers came voices. Tom, Linda, Emma, all speaking at once. Jack, let them come. Let them understand. This isn't an ending. It's a transformation. Dad? Jack's voice was barely audible. Dad, please. I need you. I've spent 25 years trying to bring you back. We never left, son. We've been watching you. Every achievement, every moment of grief, every year of searching. We've been there, but you need to let go of the idea of bringing us back to a single timeline. We exist beyond that now. The three Emmas reached the tent and stepped inside. For a moment, Sarah saw them. A perfect fusion of three lives into one being, eyes filled with understanding that no single human should possess. Then they were gone. Jack collapsed, Marcus catching him before he hit the ground. They're gone. They're all gone. No, Dr. Park said, staring at his readings in awe. They're everywhere. The temporal signature just multiplied exponentially. They didn't disappear. They expanded. Grace's radio crackled. All units, be advised. We have multiple civilian vehicles approaching Whispering Valley. Armed individuals. Repeat, armed individuals approaching your location. Marcus grabbed his weapon. The government team. They're not here to help. They're here to capture the phenomenon. Sarah looked at the equipment, at the shimmering air where the Emmas had vanished, at Jack, broken on the ground. Everything was spiraling out of control. What do we do? She asked. Marcus's expression hardened. We protect this place, whatever it takes. The first helicopter landed in the clearing adjacent to the campsite. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons raised, surrounding Sarah's group within minutes. A woman in a dark suit emerged last, her expression cold and calculated. I'm Director Karen Walsh, Special Operations Division, she announced. This area is now under federal jurisdiction. Everyone step away from the equipment. Marcus stepped forward. Karen, you don't understand what you're dealing with here. This isn't something that can be controlled or weaponized. Marcus Webb, she said with disdain, the agent who went rogue. You've been protecting this phenomenon for decades, feeding us false data, misdirecting our investigations. Did you really think we wouldn't figure it out? Jack struggled to his feet, eyes red from crying. You can't have this place. You can't turn my family's sacrifice into a weapon. Your family made a choice that defied natural law, Director Walsh said. They crossed into a temporal anomaly and emerged scattered across multiple realities. That technology, that knowledge, it belongs to the United States government. It's not technology, Dr. Park shouted. It's a natural phenomenon. The rare earth minerals, the electromagnetic fields, they create conditions where time itself becomes fluid. You can't control it any more than you can control gravity. Director Walsh smiled coldly. We'll see about that. Secure the equipment and prepare for specimen extraction. Specimen extraction? Sarah's blood ran cold. You're talking about the Morrison family like they're lab rats. They're anomalies, Walsh replied. Living proof that temporal manipulation is possible. With proper study, we could replicate the conditions, create controlled temporal pockets. Imagine the applications: military, intelligence, scientific. We could reshape reality itself. Grace pulled her weapon, pointing it at Walsh. I won't let you do this. I've protected these people for 25 years. I won't stop now. Tactical team members immediately aimed their rifles at Grace. The tension was suffocating. Grace Martinez, Walsh said calmly, Always the sentimental one. Lower your weapon, or I'll have my team eliminate everyone here and claim it was necessary force. A sound like thunder rolled through the valley. The ground trembled beneath their feet. The shimmering air around the campsite intensified, becoming visible, waves of distorted reality rippling outward. Dr. Park checked his instruments frantically. The temporal field is destabilizing. The presence of so many people, the electromagnetic interference from your equipment, it's triggering a cascade effect. The tent began to glow with an otherworldly light. Through the fabric, shadows moved, figures that looked human but existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. What's happening? Director Walsh demanded, her composure cracking. They're responding, Jack said, awe in his voice. The Morrison family. They know we're in danger. The shadows emerged from the tent, Tom, Linda, and a unified Emma, their forms flickering between solid and transparent. They didn't walk so much as exist in multiple points simultaneously, appearing and disappearing as they moved. Linda Morrison's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. You seek to control what cannot be controlled, to weaponize what should remain sacred. Tom Morrison added, We chose to exist beyond time to protect those we love, but our presence here, in this concentrated form, is destabilizing your reality. Director Walsh raised her weapon, hands shaking. Secure them, now! The tactical team hesitated, fear evident on their faces. How do you capture something that exists in multiple dimensions? Emma Morrison's unified form approached Jack, her expression filled with love and sadness. Brother, you must understand. We cannot return to a single timeline without destroying all the others. Every version of us that exists, every reality where we made different choices, all would collapse. Then what do I do? Jack sobbed. How do I let you go? You don't let us go, Emma said gently. You let us be. We're not gone, Jack. We're everywhere, in every moment, watching over you, loving you across infinite realities. The light intensified, becoming blinding. When it faded, the Morrison family was gone, and so was the temporal pocket. The tent, the equipment, everything connected to 1993 had vanished. Director Walsh stared at the empty clearing, her weapon lowering slowly. What just happened? They closed the door, Dr. Park said quietly. To protect us, to protect themselves. The temporal pocket is sealed. Sarah sat in a federal interrogation room for 18 hours. They'd confiscated her phone, laptop, cameras, everything. But what they didn't know was that she'd uploaded her recordings to a secure cloud server hours before the siege began. Director Walsh entered, exhaustion evident on her face. Ms. Chen, you need to understand the gravity of this situation. What you witnessed is classified at the highest level. If you speak about this publicly, you'll face federal charges. For reporting the truth, Sarah asked calmly. For exposing a government program that's been hiding missing persons cases for decades. For threatening national security. Walsh leaned forward. You have no idea what's at stake. Those temporal pockets exist all over the country. Maybe the world. If people knew, there would be chaos. Religious groups would claim their doorways to heaven or hell. Scientists would flock to them without understanding the dangers. Governments would weaponize them. So your solution is to keep families suffering? To let them believe their loved ones are dead when they might be existing in another timeline? Walsh's expression softened slightly. What would you tell them, Ms. Chen? That their missing daughter is scattered across infinite realities? That they can never see her again because she's become something beyond human comprehension? Would that bring them peace? Sarah thought of her own sister, missing for 30 years. The photograph she'd received. Her sister as an adult, healthy, smiling. They deserve to know, she said quietly, even if the truth is difficult. The truth will destroy more than it heals, Walsh said. But I'm not here to debate philosophy. I'm here to offer you a choice. Sign the non-disclosure agreement, accept a generous settlement, and walk away. Or fight us in court, lose years of your life in legal battles, and accomplish nothing. There's a third option, Sarah said. I publish everything. My recordings, Dr. Park's research, the witness statements you buried. I make it impossible for you to hide this anymore. Walsh's jaw tightened. We'll seize your files under national security. You're too late. They're already out there, encrypted. Time to release if I don't check in every 24 hours. It was a bluff, but Walsh didn't need to know that. The director stood, anger barely contained. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. 3 days later, Sarah was released. They'd charged her with nothing, couldn't without revealing what they were hiding. She walked out of the federal building to find Jack Morrison waiting. They offered you money, too? She asked. Jack nodded. Enough to shut down Cascade Holdings and disappear forever. I refused. What will you do now? Keep mapping the temporal pockets. Not to exploit them, to protect them, to make sure what happened to my family doesn't happen to others. He handed her a flash drive. This is everything. My research, my father's original calculations, locations of every anomaly site I've found. If you're going to tell this story, tell it completely. Sarah took the drive, feeling its weight. Your family, do you think they're at peace? I think they're beyond peace. Beyond anything we can comprehend. Jack's eyes were distant. I spent 25 years trying to bring them back. I should have been learning to let them evolve. Marcus appeared, flanked by 2 federal agents. His hands were cuffed, but his expression was serene. Sarah, they're transferring me to a black site facility. They think I know where other temporal pockets are. Do you? She asked. Some, but not all. He leaned close, whispering. There's one they don't know about. Wyoming, 1979. My wife. If you're going to expose this, find her first. Tell her story. She deserves that. The agents pulled him away. Grace was already gone, transferred to a different facility, separated to prevent them from collaborating. Dr. Park found Sarah at her hotel that evening. I've been fired, credentials revoked, research confiscated. But I made copies. He smiled wearily. Decades of work on temporal physics. It's yours if you want it. The alignment, Sarah said suddenly. It happens again in 2 months. What if... The Morrison family sealed that pocket completely, Dr. Park interrupted. But you're right to wonder. There are other sites, other families who might experience the same phenomenon. And now, with the government actively hunting these locations... Sarah looked at the flash drive Jack had given her, then at Dr. Park's research files. She thought about Marcus being taken away, Grace in custody, the Morrison family scattered across infinite timelines. I'm going to publish everything, she said. Not just the Morrison case, all of it. Every temporal pocket, every missing person who might have crossed over, every government cover-up. The world needs to know. They'll come after you, Dr. Park warned. Let them. Sarah opened her laptop. Some stories are worth the price. She began to write, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The title appeared at the top of the page. The Family That Vanished in 1993, and the Government That's Been Hiding the Truth for Decades. Sarah worked through the night, compiling evidence, cross-referencing testimonies, building an unshakable case. As dawn broke, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. No caller ID, no location data, just a message that made her blood run cold. Sarah drove to the storage facility where Jack had kept his father's belongings. Using the access code Jack had given her, she found Box 2847, dusty, forgotten, labeled simply Dad's Work Files 1992-1993. Inside, beneath layers of geological surveys and topographical maps, she found a sealed envelope, Tom Morrison's handwriting on the front, "To whoever finds this, when the time is right." Her hands trembled as she opened it. Sarah sat back, the letter trembling in her hands. Tom had known. He'd understood exactly what would happen to his family, and he'd done it anyway. Not out of recklessness, but out of purpose. Her phone buzzed again, this time a video file from an unknown source. She opened it with shaking fingers. The footage showed Whispering Valley from an impossible angle, as if filmed from multiple dimensions simultaneously. And there, in the center, stood the Morrison family in their transcendent form, existing in all moments at once. Linda Morrison spoke, her voice harmonizing across infinite realities. Sarah Chen. You've been chosen, too, not to transform, not yet, but to be the bridge between worlds. To help humanity understand that disappearance isn't always tragedy. Sometimes it's evolution. Tom Morrison continued. We've watched you, across every timeline, in every version of reality where you exist. In most, you published the truth and caused chaos. In some, you stayed silent and lived with regret. But in one timeline, just one, you found the balance. Emma's unified form smiled. Tell our story, but tell it as a choice, not a mystery. Help people understand that some who vanish aren't lost. They're found. They've discovered something greater than single-timeline existence. Jack appeared in the video. Not the broken man Sarah knew, but a Jack from another timeline. Peaceful and whole. In the reality where you succeed, I learned to let go. I stopped trying to bring them back, and instead celebrate what they've become. Help me reach that understanding, Sarah. Help the Jack in your timeline find peace. The video ended with a final message scrolling across the screen. 17 pockets. 17 families transformed. More appearing every month. Humanity stands at a crossroads. Guide them wisely. Sarah stared at her laptop, at the exposé she'd written, at the choice before her. Publish everything and potentially cause panic? Or reshape the narrative? Help people understand that these disappearances might be something beautiful? She deleted her article and started over. This time, the title read, The Family That Vanished in 1993 and Found Something Greater Than We Can Imagine. She wrote about transformation, not tragedy. About evolution, not loss. About families who hadn't been taken but had chosen to become something more. Sarah's article went viral within hours, not because of sensationalism but because of hope. She'd framed the Morrison disappearance not as a tragedy, but as a profound transformation. A family who had chosen to evolve beyond the constraints of linear time. The response was immediate and polarizing. Religious leaders debated whether temporal pockets were divine or demonic. Scientists demanded access to the research data. Families of missing persons flooded social media, sharing their own stories of unexplained disappearances near geological anomalies. But most importantly, people began to understand that some mysteries didn't need solving. They needed accepting. Director Walsh appeared on every news program, denying everything. Ms. Chen's article is based on fabricated evidence and conspiracy theories. There is no government program studying temporal anomalies. Her denials only made people more curious. Dr. Park, despite being blacklisted from academic institutions, found himself fielding calls from researchers worldwide. The electromagnetic signatures are real, he told a packed auditorium at an independent research conference. We can measure them, map them, even predict where new temporal pockets might appear. What we can't do is control them. Jack Morrison emerged from hiding, choosing to speak publicly for the first time. On a live television interview, he sat calmly as the host pressed him about his family's fate. Do you believe they're still alive? The host asked. They're more than alive, Jack replied. They exist in a state we don't have words for. They've transcended the limitations of single-timeline existence. They can observe all possible realities, all the different choices that could have been made. In a way, they're more present now than they ever were before. Don't you want them back? Jack's smile was peaceful, the same serenity Sarah had seen in the video from another timeline. I spent 25 years trying to bring them back. But wanting someone to be different than they are isn't love. It's selfishness. Loving them means celebrating what they've become, not mourning what they no longer are. The interview changed everything. Suddenly, families of missing persons weren't just grieving. They were wondering, could their loved ones have found something better than the life they'd left behind? Sarah received a call from Marcus Webb, somehow speaking from the secure facility where he was being held. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You found the balance. Reports are coming in of temporal pockets being discovered peacefully. People are approaching them with respect, not fear." "What about the government program?" Sarah asked. "Shut down," Marcus replied. "Hard to justify weaponizing something when the entire world knows it exists and represents human evolution." Walsh has been reassigned. The new director wants to study the phenomenon openly, scientifically, but not exploit it. Grace Martinez was released the following week. She contacted Sarah immediately. "I've been offered a position leading a new task force, protecting temporal pocket sites from exploitation while studying them safely. It's what we should have been doing all along." "Will you take it?" Sarah asked. "Only if you'll document the work. The world needs to understand this isn't science fiction. It's the next step in human development." 6 months later, Sarah stood at the edge of Whispering Valley. The area was now a protected research site, staffed by scientists from around the world. The local mountain community served as guardians, sharing their ancestral knowledge about the sacred places. Tourism had changed too. People came not to gawk at a mystery, but to pay respects to those who had chosen transformation. A small memorial stood where the Morrison campsite had been, with a plaque reading, "In honor of those who chose to explore beyond the boundaries of time." Jack Morrison stood beside her, healthier than she'd seen him since this all began. "I dream about them sometimes," he said. "Not nightmares. Beautiful dreams where I can see all the timelines they're protecting, all the versions of reality where our family exists in different ways." "Do you regret not going with them?" Sarah asked. "No, my role is here, helping others understand. Every family that approaches a temporal pocket with knowledge instead of fear, every scientist who studies these phenomena with respect instead of exploitation. That's their legacy, working through me." Sarah's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Wyoming temporal pocket discovered. Family of 4 missing since 1979. Local authorities requesting consultation. Will you come?" She looked at Jack. "Another one." "Another family finding their path," Jack corrected. "Are you ready?" Sarah smiled, thinking of her sister's photograph, of the peace in her eyes. "Yes. Let's help them understand they're not lost. They're found." 2 years after the Morrison revelation, Sarah stood in a field in Wyoming where Marcus Webb's wife had vanished in 1979. The temporal pocket here was different. Older, more stable, humming with an energy that felt ancient and welcoming. Marcus had been released from federal custody 6 months earlier. His charges dropped when the new administration chose transparency over suppression. Now he stood beside Sarah, tears streaming down his weathered face, as he approached the place where he'd lost everything 43 years ago. "Helen," he whispered to the shimmering air. "Helen, can you hear me?" The response came not as words, but as a feeling. Warmth, love, understanding that transcended language. Through the specialized equipment Jack Morrison had developed, they could sense the presence of those who had transformed, even if direct communication remained limited. Dr. Park, now leading the International Temporal Research Consortium, monitored readings from a respectful distance. "The signature is stable. She's here, Marcus. She's been here all along, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Marcus asked. Jack Morrison, who had become the world's foremost expert on temporal pocket communication, adjusted his equipment. Through the speakers came a woman's voice, faint but clear. Waiting for you to understand that I didn't leave you, Marcus. I found a way to love you across all possible timelines. Marcus collapsed to his knees. I'm sorry, Helen. I spent so many years trying to bring you back instead of celebrating where you went. You were protecting others, Helen's voice replied, keeping them safe while they weren't ready. Your work saved countless families from entering pockets before their time. You were exactly where you needed to be. Sarah documented everything, but her role had evolved beyond journalism. She'd become something like a translator between worlds, helping families understand that their loved ones hadn't been lost. They'd been found by something greater than earthly existence. Her phone buzzed with a message that made her smile. New pocket discovered in Scotland. Family of 3. They left a note. Don't mourn us. We're going exploring. Local authorities want your consultation. The world had changed. Temporal pockets were no longer feared mysteries, but recognized as natural phenomena. Doorways for those ready to transcend linear existence. Families approached them with knowledge, making informed choices about transformation. Some chose to enter together, like the Morrison family. Others, like Marcus, chose to remain behind as guardians and guides. There was no right or wrong choice, only different paths of love and service. Sarah's own sister had never contacted her directly, but Sarah no longer needed closure in the traditional sense. She understood now that her sister existed somewhere in the multiverse, living a life beyond the constraints of singular timeline. The photograph had been enough, proof that love transcends the boundaries of time and space. Grace Martinez ran the Global Temporal Monitoring Network, ensuring that each pocket was studied respectfully and protected from exploitation. The mountain communities that had guarded these places for generations were finally recognized as the true experts, their traditional knowledge integrated with modern science. As the sun set over the Wyoming landscape, Marcus stood slowly, his conversation with Helen complete. She's at peace, he said. They all are. They've found something we can barely imagine. What will you do now? Sarah asked. Help others find their peace too, Marcus replied. Whether that means entering a temporal pocket or learning to let go of those who already have. Everyone deserves to understand that some disappearances are actually discoveries. Sarah looked at the shimmering air where Helen Webb existed beyond time, thinking of all the families she'd helped, all the mysteries she'd reframed as transformations rather than tragedies. Her phone rang. Another case, another family, another opportunity to bridge the gap between loss and understanding. Sarah Chen, she answered. Ms. Chen, my daughter vanished near a geological anomaly in Colorado 3 days ago. The local authorities say she's missing, but I think she might have found something. Can you help me understand? Sarah smiled, looking at Jack, Marcus, Grace, and Dr. Park, her team of guardians and guides. Yes, she said. We can help you understand, and we can help you find peace with whatever choice she made.